liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in. Let's get right to it. So we're talking about Daniel Cameron, GOP candidate for Senate, MAGA supporter for sure. Loves Donald Trump, love his dirty draws. But we want to talk about one of those moments when you're slapped. I mean, literally slapped. And that slap is so shocking, it puts you right back into the present. Because see, Daniel was under the impression that he was one of them. And Donald Trump had to set him straight. You know, he slapped him so hard that, you know, Daniel can't even think straight right now. He think that it is his responsibility to remain in a race that he's basically by his chief, his master has told him, we don't want you in. So rather than accept that, I think that's the mindset of a lot of people when they're shocked back into the present, especially in terms of something that they thought was, when they come to realize that it isn't. It's just so disturbing and shocking that, they tend to think, no, I got to do this anyway, because I'm pretty sure that they want me to do this anyway. He seems to be that messed up about being betrayed or stabbed in the back by his leader, Master Donald Trump. Donald Trump endorsed U.S. Representative Andy Barr over former state attorney general Daniel Cameron in the Kentucky Senate primary, because Barr was seen as a reliable, proven political winner, unquote, by Trump. Trump was reportedly turned off by Cameron's 2023 loss in the governor's race and his political ties to Mitch McConnell, while Barr offered a dependable vote in Congress. So he was turned off by Cameron's 2023 loss in the governor's race. Yeah, I think more than that, turned Donald Trump off and turned him against Daniel Cameron. But you can't tell Daniel Cameron that, because Daniel Cameron, he associates and he identifies with the GOP and the MAGA team or following. This is something you can't tell him that he is not a part of and that he is not accepted as a part of. Even with Donald Trump's denial of Daniel Cameron or his support of Daniel Cameron, Daniel continues to think that he is still a part of them. Sad, but a rude awakening, very rude awakening nonetheless, probably one that was needed. He needed to have, which probably won't last with him very long, because everything about Daniel Cameron is MAGA. Everything. Okay. Now, the electability factor is what Trump quoted. Trump publicly blamed Cameron's 2023 loss of governor on the stench of Mitch McConnell, and viewed Barr as a safer bet to hold the seat for Republicans. Now, Mitch McConnell had spoke bad about Trump in the past, but Mitch is not the first one. Even when they all thought that Trump weren't running anything, and that his first term, his run for his first bid to run or campaign for president was nothing. The guy was just a showman. He's a nobody, an idiot. Some of them stuck to their guns even after Trump won, and did what they wanted to do. And one of those persons was Mitch McConnell, and Trump couldn't stand that guy. But, here we are. Cameron followed, or had, I guess, some type of, he saw eye to eye with Mitch, and Trump said to him, "You have the stench of Mitch on you." Wow. and he viewed Barr as a safer bet to hold the seat for Republicans. Anyway, but the congressional loyalty as a U.S. representative, Barr was a reliable vote for the Trump aligned legislative agenda, whereas Cameron had never served in Congress. Cameron was just the attorney general down in Kentucky. Oh, wow. And just thinking about that, imagine the harm to the black community as such. Anyway, the consolidating the field, Trump convinced another major candidate, businessman Nate Morris, to drop out of the primary by offering him a yet unspecified ambassadorship, clearing the lane for an immediate endorsement of Barr. All right. Now, there's no indication that Trump even offered Cameron, Daniel Cameron, anything. He just, hey, I'm going to endorse Andy Barr over you. And, again, you got the stench of Mitch on you. And, you're not really one of us. You're not really one of us. And that, again, that's one of the harshest realities for those type of people to accept and deal with. It's a real psychological blow, or it's a real blow to their psychology. You have to really think about that. And again, everything about him is MAGA. Everything. All right. Anyway, fundraising and momentum. Barr had significantly outraised Cameron and benefited from heavy financial backing and momentum in the weeks leading up to the decision. Okay. Now, I have a clip. I'm going to bring this in here so you guys can, get a little more context in terms of this story. But there is another story aside from Trump backstabbing Daniel Cameron in the back, and picking Andy Barr over him to run for Senate. The black community has a lot to say about what took place, what occurred, and how, for the most part, they have no sympathy for Daniel Cameron. But the debate surrounding Donald Trump's endorsement of Andy Barr over Daniel Cameron has drawn strong criticism from multiple angles, including accusations of racial pandering and questions about true alignment with the MAGA movement. However, the controversy points to multiple directions depending on the political perspective. Now, when they're talking about the pick that Trump made a lot, or saying, or there are a lot of accusations and allegations going around saying that the pick was purely racial. It was racial pandering, or racial pandering as a part of this preliminary. Some critics and local commentators argue that the primary race itself shifted towards racial and ethnic resentment as candidates fought for Trump's base. Here's the DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion ad controversy. This ad did add controversy, but anyway, prior to the endorsement, Andy Barr had faced several severe backlash from critics who labeled his campaign commercials racially divisive. Okay, Barr released an ad heavily attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives, calling it dumb, evil indoctrination, and declaring that it's not a sin to be white. The permission structure, so that is right there, okay, and that just had to tickle Trump's fancy. He had to enjoy that so much, say, hey, we got to get this guy. He's one of us, you know. You have to imagine had Daniel Cameron had been so MAGA, if he was even more MAGA and said that himself, Trump would probably give him a pat on the back and the thumbs up, the okay. He would probably have Trump's endorsement. Anyway, but the their permission structure critique, columnists in outlets like the Kentucky Latron argued that Barr, traditionally seen as a mainstream establishment Republican, intentionally adopted racially charged hard right messaging to appeal to Trump's base and secure the endorsement over Cameron, who is black. Okay. So, this thing here, it, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to be had to this. And again, Daniel Cameron's problem, um, yeah, you could say it has a lot to do, or it starts with uh, his backing or him being one of MAGA, being a part of the base or supporters. But it goes deeper than that. He is getting a lot of blowback, especially publicly, from the black community, from the black community. But again, without further ado, let's bring this clip in, because this is going to tell you a whole lot about what Trump really saw in terms of his endorsement and how Andy Barr played on that, and to Daniel's, not to his credit, but to his loss, to his being looked over, he wasn't MAGA enough. All right. So let's bring this clip in for a little more context and clarity. Again, please like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe to Tapped. You are tapped in the art of political discourse. You guys' participation and viewership is greatly appreciated. We thank you very much for that. Now, without further ado, here we go. And this is courtesy of Maple Frequency.
What would you do if you spent 14 months of your life, your money, your reputation, your family's time, building loyalty to someone who turned around and handed your spot to somebody else without warning, without a phone call, without even the basic respect of a heads-up text message? That's exactly what just happened to Daniel Cameron, former Attorney General of Kentucky. And if you're not paying attention to this story, you need to be.
That has to be the most embarrassing thing. The most embarrassing thing.
Because what just went down in Kentucky is not just about one Senate race. This is a masterclass in how political power actually works in America. And the lesson, it's brutal. Stay right here. We're about to break all of it down.
That's an understatement. It's brutal. That is demoralizing. Again, here's a guy, black guy, and everything that he sees, he's viewing it through white gaze. Let's call it what it is, okay? And to support MAGA the way he does, the way he has been for years, to be told then you're not MAGA enough or you're not white enough has to be demoralizing, because this guy has assimilated in every shape, form, and fashion to get the approval of the white vote, to have them support and have them know that he has their back, and still be denied support from the one guy that could make his life worthwhile. Has to be demoralizing.
Welcome back. For those of you who are new here, this channel is about truth. We don't care about party lines. We don't care about what McConnell, who has 2026. Here's the setup. There's a Senate seat open in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell, who has held that seat for over 4 decades, is finally retiring. 3 major Republicans have been fighting for that nomination for over a year. Congressman Andy Barr, businessman Nate Morris, and former Attorney General Daniel Cameron. All 3 of them had one thing in common. They were all desperately chasing Donald Trump's endorsement. They all showed up when Trump was in Kentucky. They all praised him publicly. They all aligned their messaging with his. This was a race where loyalty to Trump was the currency, and everyone was spending it. And Daniel Cameron, he had receipts, real ones. Let's talk about who this man actually is. Orny General, the Getty Images free press photos available at AP Images. Daniel Cameron is not a nobody. He was Kentucky's first black attorney general, elected in 2019, the first Republican to hold that office in 70 years. He had Trump's endorsement in that race. He won. In 2023, he ran for governor of Kentucky with Trump's endorsement again. He lost to Democratic incumbent Andy Beshear in what was considered a stunning upset in one of the most Republican states in the country. But Cameron didn't quit. He stayed loyal. He kept showing up for Trump. He announced his Senate campaign and positioned himself as the true conservative in the race, the proven Trump ally, the one who had delivered for the movement. For 14 months, Cameron was in this race. Friday night, President Trump announced he was offering Nate Morris, one of Cameron's rivals, an ambassadorship in exchange for dropping out of the race. Morris accepted. Within minutes, Trump then endorsed Andy Barr. 2 moves, 1 night. And just like that, Daniel Cameron, the man who had Trump's backing in 2 previous races, was left standing alone. Room deal he never saw coming. Here's what most of the media is glossing over. Cameron's political consultant responded to Trump's endorsement of Barr with 1 sentence. Congrats to Mitch McConnell for getting his guy. Cameron himself had told reporters earlier that it was the worst kept secret in town that McConnell's team was backing Barr. It couldn't. Cameron responded defiantly, saying, "I'm not running to impress Washington. I'm running to represent this great Commonwealth," and launched a statewide Kentucky First tour to meet voters in the final.
And that's what he believes, right? And I think mistakenly he believes this. There are a lot of black politicians in politics who really trust or believe that their involvement in politics can change some things or make things better. And the reality to that is wrong. You are wrong. You are wrong. The deck is stacked against you. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. The deck is stacked against you. The deck actually doesn't have a card in it for you. You know, one will be created, invented, and instilled and inserted into the deck. And you'd be liable, you know, it shuffled around, dealt out, and then when it's convenient, they remove that card from the deck, bring it back down to a 52 card deck, and hey, you know, you'll be forgotten until they need you again, you know. So it's kind of sad to see this take place with this guy. Again, this guy Daniel Cameron, he actually is convinced that he's the guy for your job. He is a dedicated, staunch MAGA supporter and Republican. He doesn't think that what took place was uh, uh, a stabbing in the back incident. He just thought that, hey, you know, that's the way the cards were dealt. He doesn't see the deck for what it really is. To give you a little more insight on that, Daniel Cameron has publicly rejected the idea that he was stabbed in the back, framing the lost endorsement as a tactical political disagreement rather than a personal or racial betrayal. He maintains that his mind is his own and refuses to let outside critics define his political alignment based on his skin color. Well, that's all right. That's fine for you. But what about those who they're doing that too, but in the opposite way, you know? So, you know, to 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 hell with what you think, you know what I mean? Because you're getting into a get out, or you're trying to join a party of people, a group of people who care spit about you, you know, you can care spit about you, you know, and that's what we see here. Now that being said, there is also a debate within the black community about this whole incident, and a lot of black people are saying, that's what you get. That's what you get, you know. But the debate within the black community goes, look, the perception of Trump's endorsement has triggered vastly different reactions from black commentators and voters, depending on their political leanings. All right. Critiques, all right, or critiques from the left and black Democrats, progressive and mainstream black commentators have used the endorsement to argue that Cameron's unwavering loyalty to a conservative base was ultimately met with political opportunism. Okay. Commentary in outlets like the Courier Journal criticized Cameron's broader political strategy, with some arguing he alienated black voters by leaning into anti-DEI rhetoric, only to be cast aside by Trump when a white candidate, Barr, appeared more electable. Virtual reactions on platforms like YouTube echoes a "told you so" sentiment, framing Cameron as an outsider who mistakenly believed he was part of the inner circle. And so this is why you see him being more defensive. He's not really being defensive in terms of what Trump did to him. He's being defensive in terms of what the black community is saying to him. And they're saying basically that's what you get. And he said, oh no, that's not even what you guys think. It's had nothing to do with it. You know, this is politics. And they picked the guy they thought was, you know, yeah, okay. Okay, Daniel. And in fact, we think that's the end of Daniel's career as a MAGA politician. You know, in spite of what he say, a lot of us also tend to think that he'll go sit in the shadows, sit in the back of the room, and wait to see if he'll be summoned by Trump for, you know, some mediocre position. You know, this is what we think. But again, to those individuals who think that they are part of a club that honestly sees you only as tokens, you'll have a rude awakening awaiting for you at some point or period. And there are a few others in that party. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. In fact, we'll leave that for another piece. We'll drop that. But what do you think about this? Was Daniel Cameron broadsided? Was he stabbed in the back? Really? Really? And was it, to Trump's benefit? Obviously, he think it was to get or endorse Andy Barr, although Andy Barr never had an issue with, policies like DEI and things of that nature. But using that to his benefit, it got him the endorsement. Wow. Has a lot to say about the situation. Let us know what you think. Put your thoughts in the comments. And hey, let's have at it, okay? Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.